A dream deferred, poetry analysis. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fizzle like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? This poem is written by Langston Hughes in the 1930s. The title of the poem is Dream Deferred. When we look at the words, it is basically that a dream is delayed or put aside. And that is what the whole poem is about. If you do not react to your dreams, maybe in the end it is coming to haunt you. This poem was written in the end of the Harlem Renaissance, when the black people used jazz, painting, and literature to express themselves. We don't believe there is a poet eye in this poem, but we can see how the writer could in a way relate or have a direct influence on in the poem. Because when he says dream deferred, we believe it indicates that it should be the black people he is referring to. The first line is a question to us readers about what is happening to a dream deferred. What is happening to a dream delayed or put aside? And when we read it, we thought of our own dreams. We believe Hughes wanted us to think of the dreams we have and what we need to do about them. Second line, does it dry up? We believe the writer didn't put a questioning mark at the end of the line because we already knew the answer. He tries indirect to show us that the dreams are put aside. Third line, like a raisin in the sun. Raisins are supposed to be dry because of the sun. It starts being a grape, and with the phrase before this, he meant that does the dream that is delayed stay delayed forever. Raisin in the Sun is also played by Lorraine Hansberry, and she was inspired by Langston's phrase. Hansberry was an African-American woman who debuted with the play in 1959 on Broadway. Fourth line, usually things fester, but they aren't healing or when they aren't being cared for properly. Here our speaker suggests that a deferred dream won't heal or go away. Fifth line, and what happens next, and then run. We believe he is continuing asking us what happens to our dreams. Do they dry up like a raisin in the sun? Do they fester? And here he asks again, do they run? Sixth line. In this line he reminds us that dreams are delayed / postponed because if we take the example stink like a rotten meat, it reminds us that it is still there waiting for us to do something about it. Seventh line. When he says, or crust like a sugar over, we think of a mask and covering up. We think he's trying to tell us that we may put our dreams aside and not follow them, but even though we put the mask on and forget them, they are still there.
Eighth line. Like a syrupy sweet, we believe he thinks it's being covered up and have a facade like it's all good and okay, even though it's not. Ninth line. When something sags, it is because something heavy brings it down, and by that Langston maybe tries to tell us that if important dreams are postponed, it maybe just ends up sagging. Like a heavy load. When we hear that, we think of a heavy burden. So when something sags because of a heavy burden, it is because the dream is waiting to come out. Waiting to be dreamed, waiting to come out in the open. 10th line, or does it explode? Here is it where it all ends. All the dry up, crust over, sagging, heavy load. After all the time all these things have pressured, it maybe just explodes in your face. The last line maybe feels so cold and harsh in a way, but at the same time liberating. You have held these things in you for quite a while, and finally it explodes, finally it's out in the open. The simile in this poem is raisin in the sun, fester like a sore, stink like rotten meat, sags like heavy load. The connotation in this poem is like a raisin in the sun, an old dead black man who's dried up, fester like a sore, decaying corpse, very negative, unhealthy, stink like rotten meat, the smell of a dead corpse, Like a syrup is sweet, the upside of broad, even though it says sweet and sugar over, we still think of it as something not very attractive. Like a heavy load, something that is only a burden. Dream deferred, the thought of an equal America postponed when you see a black corpse rotten on a field. An example of personification is the dream. Examples of alliteration from the poem is dream deferred, syrup is sweet. The attitude in this poem is rough motivation. He tries to motivate people to not give up on their dreams. He uses a lot of harsh words. When we analyzed it and found the meanings behind every word, we came to the conclusion of these words, rough motivation. We believe the poem appeals to people's emotions. When you read it, it gives you something to think about. Is your dream delayed? And maybe even give you the motivation and feeling to accomplish your dreams. We believe the theme is not giving up, fighting back, and how the African American people's pressure explodes. It makes you realize that things aren't always sugar sweet and the dreams need to be accomplished.